Hello, welcome back to the second session of the Empower Me to Be Clutter Free program. We are on to session two. Today's topic is decluttering your paper piles. So now that you've jump started the process into decluttering, let's take the process a step further with 60 things we want you to try to declutter in the next 60 days. So you don't have to write down this list because we are going to email it to you today. But just a few that stick out to me. Some things that you can get rid of. Old CDs, whether they have scratches or it's just, music you don't listen to anymore. It could be worn out sheets and pillowcases. If you're not going to put them on your bed, why keep them stored in a closet or in your room in a drawer? What's the purpose? Old gift cards. So things that aren't necessarily meaningful, but you've been just holding on to, you've had a hard time of letting go. So for myself, I've been trying to ditch the unneeded and unwanted digital items. So really trying to like unsubscribe from all those email lists that I'm on. And that's really something that's helping, calm down my email, especially right now when so much is digital. So if you had any success since last week, it's okay to celebrate and enjoy the changes that you've made. It's not always easy to release things, but it is okay. So it's such great progress when we are to the point of being able to, you know, declutter, release those items, and not feel like we have to have so many things. Doesn't change make you feel better? So here we have a picture of a lot of items that another educator, she went through a house, and these were things that she was getting rid of. So she said that she felt great after she was able to, you know, bring all this clutter together and feel like that this stuff was all going to the next place, whether it was a yard sale or a thrift store, it was moving on. And your house can feel like it's growing when we declutter. So getting rid of those things that are on the counter, on the floor, we're giving ourselves more space, whether it's counter space or even just square footage in our home of areas that we can move around. Decluttering can occur in any part of your home. It doesn't have to start in a bedroom or a closet. You can even look at an area like your garage. Maybe that's the place that's really been, bugging you and you really want to work on it. So really go with what you're feeling and where you feel directed most to work. Even small changes are worth celebrating. So, here is a before picture of a what I would call a Midwestern junk drawer. And you can see they have their dividers in here. So, they have a goal of making some changes to their drawer, but they've not quite started yet. So, even a drawer can feel like a big change and can be worth celebrating. So, since last week, I hope you all have enjoyed a little bit of celebrating if you've made some progress, and enjoyed your success in decluttering. Sometimes that celebration is just sitting down, relaxing, viewing the room or the closet, garage, wherever the space is, and just enjoying that decluttered area and feeling like you've really accomplished something that week. I myself cleaned out my closet and just seeing the items that I knew I wasn't going to be wearing head out the door, it made me feel good. And I took those items to the thrift store. So I felt like I was blessing someone else in the process. Next, we're going to go over the five S's of lean. So the five S's of lean can be broken down into sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. So this is a process we'll often hear connected to business, but we can also relate this back to decluttering. So the first step of the five S's being sort involves going through all of the tools, furniture, materials, equipment, etc. in a work area to determine what needs to be present and what can be removed. This focuses on what we talked about last week. A workspace and living space do better without unnecessary items or items used infrequently. These things can get in our way and just take up too much space. Second, we're going to set things in order one time. Think about what is used most frequently and place that within reach. Items that are used less frequently can be placed in less convenient locations. Um, Containers, dividers, folders, are all examples of items that will assist you with this process. Three, shine. Shine involves keeping the space around the storage area clean. What good does it do to have a drawer organized, but items still are laid on the cabinet top? There will also be times when cleaning of the actual storage area is needed. So those crumbs that are left over in the toaster, or maybe there's crumbs or little things that have gotten into your silverware drawer where it's nice and organized, but it still needs some cleaning. 4, standardize systems. So everything that just happened and turns one-time efforts into habits. So we have to create a schedule, have tasks scheduled out, and have those instructions ahead of you so you have some routine in keeping order. 5, sustain. Sustain refers to the process of keeping 5 S's running smoothly, but also of keeping everyone in the household involved. Having a family meeting can help everyone be on the same page and also is a great way to get new ideas from different family members and their perspectives. So you'll note the cycle continues and your needs will change. Circumstances will change. So be on the lookout for ways that you can also alter how you are decluttering or storing your items. All right, so let's jump into the core of the presentation, purging your paper piles. So our objectives for today's lesson, we would like to improve your ability to organize the paper that comes into your life, identify important papers, create a filing system that works for you, and establish a system for keeping papers organized. So we all have paper. So, what kind of information is found most in our paper piles? Well, we can usually break that into we all have, those important papers, the not so important papers, the trash that we're meaning to get rid of, and we probably also have some, magazines, cards, kids' artwork, and other papers that have just accumulated together. So sometimes it's quite the jumble of information. Do you have a current system? Ask yourself right now what's working, what's not working, and what is keeping me from getting control. Oftentimes, the things that are keeping us from gaining control is just feeling overwhelmed or feeling like we don't have enough time to tackle these tasks. But that's why we're going to discuss a little later on about the importance of keeping up with our decluttering system once we start that system that works for us. Ideas that work well with the system are things like binders with clear pockets already in them, file folders, having even a file cabinet or file box, magazine holders, baskets. Really just find the materials that work best for you. Don't be afraid to check out various systems. Things have really changed over the years. So it used to be that everybody had a written calendar. Well, even I myself nowadays have completely changed and have moved to a app on my phone. So I no longer carry a handwritten calendar. So that's one change that I've made. So whether it is that you want to have a calendar on your phone and a handwritten calendar, or maybe you're wanting to only use your phone as your calendar, but you want to keep a paper copy of your notes, phone numbers, and addresses, check out some different resources and systems. Tying into that, another example of this is our binders that we have on the screen. So, a lot of us have and save manuals that come with the products that we purchase. So, one idea is to stick those manuals into page protectors and then categorize them in binders. So, as you can see, though, one con of this method is that these binders still take up space. So, one interesting fact most manuals are now online. So, if you're feeling conflicted, and this is one of those areas that stops you and you're stopped in your tracks, you're not sure what to do, think about your manual. Is this something that I am going to want to reference? If you're saying yes, don't be afraid to look online, see if it's available online. If it is, then you really don't need that hard copy of it. If it's not, then this is a good resource to have is to have binders that you can insert these manuals into. And this doesn't have to be limited manuals. There could be other ways that you want to organize papers into binders with those sheet protectors. And this has just been another example of a system. So systems really vary by need. So what you're looking for a product to use, it might be something you buy. Or it could be something you already have at home, like envelopes. So whether it's file folders, a stacking file sorting trays, the accordion file, old-fashioned file folders that are colorful, or the vertical file folder. There's really endless possibilities on ways and products that you can purchase or use things around your home, whether it's a box that you have, like a shoe box that you're filing into. I do like the option of using the file folders. That way you don't have to fold anything, and then you can just, have that easy to access. So through this entire process, it's important to keep in mind what your goal is. We can all pick a space that we want to work in, whether that's your desk, a table, a closet, maybe it's just a section of the counter in your kitchen, or a section of a counter in a workspace that you have, like an office. So I want you to take a second and imagine what you want your workspace to look like. What does the paper storage look like? Now think about how nice it's going to be to have all of your papers organized so that they're available when you know what you're looking for, you know where to, find what you want and what you need. And how nice is it to be able to sit down to enjoy a family dinner without having to move a bunch of papers around, or even work on your kitchen counter without having clutter to move around on there. We want to be able to utilize and enjoy the spaces we have. One of the first steps in decluttering paper is starting by setting new goals. So, our recommendation is that only one person in your household creates the filing system and then shares that information with everyone else in the family. It's important to really keep up a routine. So, whether it is daily, weekly, monthly, or every year you want to go through your system, but keeping things accessible and maintained is really going to help take up less time in the long run. Files should all be located in one area if possible, or at least in an area that makes sense for that file that you have. And then finally, systems should be easy. So it should be something that anyone in your family can pick up with the system and help out. I recommend when you're looking to declutter your papers, set a date. So, unlike last week where we said just set 15 minutes aside to go through your papers, I recommend at least 2 hours. So, set your timer for an hour and 45 minutes. The extra 15 minutes is going to give you time at the very end to clean up and relocate any files that you need to. So before you start, we want to make sure that we gathered all of our supplies, anything that you want to use like a label maker or containers, and have everything ready. This is going to help you feel encouraged and feel like you really got this project underway. Now we have to select the starting spot. So we really have two main options. We can either gather all of the papers and bring them to one central location, or you can clean or purge different locations and bringing those papers together as you go. About 2 years ago, I went through every paper in my possession at home and I used the first method. So I went through my entire house and gathered every paper that I owned. And it was a little bit overwhelming at first, but in the end, I had everything there to sort through as I started the process. So as I'm going through my papers, I did try to keep them in piles. So I knew that certain items, if they needed attention right away, they weren't going to get jumbled in with other papers. I also kept a pile of papers that are short term. So things like warranties or my tax documents. And then my third pile was things that I knew I needed to keep forever. Also, when you're doing this, keep a trash can nearby because you're going to find things along the way that you know automatically you're ready to toss, whether it's a stack of magazines, maybe it's an old box of cards. You'll find items that you're ready to let go of on the spot. In this process, it's easy to want to keep papers. I mean, a simple piece of paper takes up very little space, so it's easy to want to hold on to something that feels so small and insignificant. But as your paper piles up, this can lead to a real problem. Regardless on whether you're starting in one area of your home or if you're piling up all of your papers, we can start the purging process with a few simple tips. I want you all to think about the 20 20-80 rule when you're going through your papers. So we really only need around 20% of the papers that we currently have in our home. That means 80% should be headed out the door. Our goal is only to keep papers with a purpose. Create boxes with categories on them. I would like to start when I go through my papers and I have my recycle box, my shred box, and my save pile. So in my save pile, that includes some of those categories I mentioned in the last slide. So I'm going to break that down into current papers, papers I need to keep for a short term, and then the third, papers that I need to keep forever. The final step to really working through this process is making sure you have all that supplies ready before you start. Having a trash can, trash bag, labels or markers, whatever tools you're going to be using, make sure you have those ready to go so you don't feel like you have to stop constantly to find something you need. What to shred? So we want to shred papers that have any identifying information on them for you. Throwing papers in the trash can leave you open to identity theft. Thieves can go through your trash and they're going to try to take things out like those pre approved offers, credit card, banking information. And if they can get enough of your information, they're going to be able to establish credit under your name. So, a cross shredder is the most effective shredding method, and then this prevents thieves from reconstructing the document. If you don't have access to a shredder, and maybe you're not in a place to be able to buy one, there's also local services that you can pay to shred your documents for you. Things that identify you. So anything with account numbers, credit card numbers, financial information, bills, checks, medical information, old tax documents. Make sure you shred those items. What to keep? So we are going to keep anything that is difficult to replace. So during this process, any items providing information. So we can save our insurance policies, wills, military records, employee benefits, pension information, divorce decrees, and anything that identifies you. So and if it's a birth certificate or a social security card, we want to keep those files. And then finally, anything that shows ownership. So deeds, titles, security certificates, those things we want to hold on to. Real quick on this slide too as well. As we're going through, I mentioned earlier, there's going to be things that you find that you're ready to toss at that moment, like magazines, old coupons that are expired, manuals that you maybe don't even have the product anymore. And it also may include things like recipes that you know you're not going to be making, brochures, things you know that you picked up along the way, but they're not items that are adding value to your life or things that you need. So, how long do I need to keep files? So, this is a lot of information on the screen. So, we will mail this or email this to you so you have it. But make sure you're keeping some documents forever, meaning like your birth certificate, marriage license, divorce decree, passports, education records, military records, life insurance, household inventory, which we should be updating yearly. Your tax records, you can keep those 7 years from the filing date. Home purchase and improvement records, we're going to keep those as long as we own the property, along with any deeds, loan documents, things like that. Our bank statements, we're going to keep them for 1 year unless needed for support for our tax filing. But one thing that I've personally done is I don't have my statements mailed to me anymore. I have them electronically delivered to me because I wasn't really using the one that was mailed to me. I was always checking online at my statements. So it really didn't feel like that served a purpose in my life. And I felt like that was one more way that I could cut down on a fear of identity theft was that's one less thing that's being mailed to me that I know I'm going to throw away. Contracts, credit card records. So you want to keep those until they're paid, unless of course, you're using those for your tax filings. Insurance, whether it's your car, home, anything like that, a will. So until you renew or update those policies, we want to make sure we have those records. And then finally, investment statements. So shared monthly statements. Shred those monthly statements and then keep annual statements until you sell the investment. how to keep it. So we need to plan it out, label it, and file it. My easiest tips for this section are to think about what files you use most frequently. So if I use something, daily or weekly, I want to keep it towards the front of my file folder compared to files that I maybe look at once a year. So maybe it's my passport. If I'm not traveling, especially right now, I really don't need to have that passport towards an area of my organization or my box, whatever I'm using to access frequently. Keep it simple. So as you're organizing, one of the examples that I love to give are these clear envelopes. So when I went through all of my papers that I owned 2 years ago, I sorted everything into clear envelopes like these. And this was just a simple way of feeling like I had my information where I needed it, I could find it, and I used some pretty simple to the point labels. So make sure when you're labeling that you're not creating too many files because that's going to be too much to sort through. So we don't want 50 file folders in your box or wherever you're storing your items. We want to make sure it's concise and simple. And then finally, step into the digital world. So if you feel like you have too many papers at the end of all of this, consider scanning some of these files and placing them in, either on a digital platform. So there's some different places that you can, pay a subscription to store your files, or you can even have something like a jump drive where, you're saving your files in file folders and you have that access to them, but you don't have to keep all those records. All right, where to keep our files. So frequently used or active files is what I'll call them. Those are things like our bank accounts, credit card information, insurance, tax deductions, the will, resumes. Those are things that I want to keep and they're active. Our infrequently used files that are permanent, so we have to keep them, but maybe we don't use them as often. Things like our income tax documents, receipts that pertain to warranties and taxes, things like that. And then difficult to replace files. So this could be our household inventory, a will, summary of professionals, or even original documents that are hard to replace, like your social security card. So one thing with the last slide, um, it may be even you want to invest in a safety deposit box that's, fireproof. That way you can protect those documents that are difficult to replace. All right, our household inventory. We recommend that in case of a fire, theft, flood, whatever it could be, that you take an inventory of your home. So, a household inventory is just as it sounds. It's going to be an inventory of everything that you have in your house. So, you can either have a paper list of items you own, it could be pictures or videos. So, if you take pictures or videos, just be sure that you're really digging and making sure that you're getting pictures inside cabinets, inside drawers. So keep in mind that it can't just be the outside of, your closet or things like that, or outside of your kitchen cabinets, because we're not going to know the contents for when we are needing our insurance funds to come into play here. So these pictures were going to help you in the long run by remembering all of things you own in case you ever need them. So there are some apps out there that can help with this process. We recommend that you hop on the App Store, whatever platform you use, and do a little research and review some of the reviews out there and see which app that you want to try to use. So there's ones that you can use for your wardrobe, your home inventory, tracking receipts, tracking spending, even photos. So, a few examples of some home inventory apps that are out there that are highly rated are InCircle, Memento Database, My Stuff Organizer, Sortly, Nest Egg, and Stock and Inventory Simple. So, there are so many apps out there, and with just a little bit of investigating, you can find the app that suits you best. Helpful tools in this process. I recommend having a scanner handy, whether it's a handheld scanner like in the photo on the screen, or it could be like a printer scanner. So a way that you can scan some of those documents and keep them on a zip drive. That takes so much less space. Other helpful tools are things like having a label maker or way to print labels. Downloading those files to the zip drive, though, really will save space and time. But keeping in mind that if you have important documents on there, like, say, an insurance policy that updates every year, well, then we would need to make sure every year we go in and we resave a new copy. That way, everything is always up to date. You can also get apps for your phone that you can scan files. So some popular ones are Adobe Scan, Evernote Scannable, Genius Scan, Photo Scan, and Smart Recipes. And if you store your information in the cloud, it usually is updated automatically for you. So the final steps that I'm going to leave you all with are place related items together. So when you're going through your papers, try to keep things grouped together, and that's going to really help you, as you're trying to decide what to label your file folders. If I have a big stack of medical papers, then I know I'm going to definitely want a file folder envelope titled medical. Dispose of unneeded or duplicate files. So, my example that I like to give is once I graduated from the university I attended, I had requested several transcripts. And over the years, I'd requested them because they're free. And I wound up going through them one day and I realized I had like 20 transcripts. I was like, I don't even know that I'll ever need this many. So don't feel like you have to keep things like that, especially because that particular item, I can replace it easily. It's free because I'm a graduate of the university. So there was no reason for me to hold on to it. If it is a transcript that you're tossing out, though, please remember to shred those because they usually have your social security number on them. Number three, choose appropriate containers. So if it's a file that's going to be accessible and easy to grab, a file folder works great, or one of those plastic envelopes that I put on the screen earlier. If it's something that's a permanent file and you want to keep it safe for a long time, I would recommend a box that is not see-through, because sunlight or even room lighting can damage papers, so it can fade the ink. So we want to make sure to keep those papers readable for in the future, that we are keeping them in a container that is protecting it from the light. Number four, choose a home for each container. So it makes sense to store certain files in certain rooms. So if you have a home office available, definitely keep all your office files there. You can keep your medical, your insurance, but maybe it doesn't make as much sense to you to want to keep your old cards if you're keeping cards, or newspaper clippings. Maybe that belongs in another part of your home. And then finally, five, reduce the amount of paper you receive. So, ways to reduce paper are unsubscribing to mailings. So, if you're not reading something, unsubscribing to magazines, even. So, going ahead and feeling like you can say no to some of that extra paper we receive. And while we're at it, we have the option to digitally declutter. So I don't know about you all, but I know that I can really use some help digitally decluttering. So the first being trying to avoid feeling overwhelmed. So take about 10 to 30 minutes to go through and do short bursts of going through the process of getting on your computer and trying to like sort through your apps, get rid of the unnecessary screenshots, put those in your digital trash, unused files, things like that. So we can really work through quite a bit in this process and narrow down what's either on our file saved or whether it's on our desktop saved. And then three, getting a really good handle on our email. So with email, we can have the option to unsubscribe to things that aren't needed, those extra email lists. It may be that we're going to respond or delete to outstanding messages, clear out those ads that we don't, have interest in, and then file documents as they need to be saved. Four, we're going to check the cloud. So, a great way to truly declutter is to use the cloud to store everything from large documents to travel receipts. Virtual storage helps control the computer desktop clutter and can be used to prevent email from getting uncontrollable. and even translate to a cleaner physical space. So this is something that you can work on at work or even at home is really, you know, focusing in on what you can add to the cloud so that you don't have to have that physical clutter on your computer or even on your desk area. And then the last one, tackle your phone. So it's important we don't forget about our mobile devices. So when you're on your phone, delete old apps, delete old pictures, videos, things that you don't need on there anymore, old notes. So really digging in there and getting rid of things that we no longer use. This not only is going to free up more storage for you, but it's also going to help the operations of your phone. So it's going to help it to run faster and smoother and ultimately help you feel like you have better control of your digital environment. All right, so hopefully we've given you some great suggestions to go ahead and jump in and tackle your paper. So take the declutter challenge this week. We challenge you all to get started on one paper area of your home. Set aside those 2 hours if you have that much time. I know that's quite a bit of time. If not, set aside 30 minutes and just see how much you can get done in those first 30 minutes. Thank you so much for participating today. And if you all have any questions, please feel free to email myself, Sarah Richer, or Sonia Mitchell. We're always happy to answer your questions. Thank you.